Hey, welcome back. And today we're going to be talking all about concert photography. We're going to talk about gear, we're going to talk about camera settings, composition, how to make a great image at a concert. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about gear. Now, you don't need the latest and greatest camera to go shoot a concert. People shoot concerts all the time on their iPhone. You're not going to get the best image, obviously, but a good DSLR or mirrorless camera, you're going to get a great image. Now, the first thing people ask me, can I use flash at a concert? No, you cannot run around with a flash at the majority of concerts. So you're going to have to get proficient at exposing for what light that you have. And to be honest, I've never really had a problem shooting at a concert and getting great exposed images. They have lights everywhere lighting up whoever's performing. So what do I personally shoot on? I personally shoot on my Nikon D610 that was assigned to me. That's what I'm shooting this video on right now, so obviously I can't show it to you. And I also have my Canon 5D Mark II, which I shoot probably 90% of my concert photography on. And right now I have a Nikon 300mm f4.5 lens. And this is fantastic if you want to get right up in somebody's face. It's best if you can get up in the pit, which is that little area between the crowd and the actual stage, and they're going to be performing right in front of you, the band, artist, whoever's performing. They're going to be right up in front of you. You'll probably never need this 300 lens if you're in the pit. Great to have. You get a really close up on, let's say, the drummer's face, because the drummer is probably going to be who's farthest away from you. Or maybe if you're stuck on one end of the pit and you're shooting all the way across to get a guitar solo, a close up on somebody picking the strings on a guitar solo. It all depends. It's just like shooting anything else. I usually bring one of my favorite lenses, 50mm 1.8. This happens to be a Nikon. Put an adapter on it for my Canon. I love Nikon glass. It's sharp. I love the contrast. I love the images that it makes. So I bring my Nikon 50mm 1.8. Fantastic lens. I recommend every photographer, if you do not have what people call a nifty 50, which is a 50mm with a low f-stop, you can really open it up. 1.0, 1.2, 1.4, this is a 1.8. Get a 50mm lens. They are small and they're fantastic in low light situations, especially concerts. They can be extremely low light situations. Now, saying I've never had a problem exposing. I have pretty great lenses. Also shoot on 14 to 24. This is a 2.8 wide angle. I was saying I don't have a problem exposing. It doesn't mean there aren't dark areas. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have to use a high ISO sometimes. Sometimes I'm shooting at 100, sometimes I'm shooting at 1250. It depends on your camera, it depends on the exact lighting. Every concert is different. It depends on the concert's budget. Are you shooting a band in the basement of a bar? They're going to have a lower budget and probably not as good quality of light. Or if you're shooting Aerosmith, they're going to have a lot better light quality. Kid Rock, Seether, those are a couple bands that I've photographed. Billy Currington, just to name a few. We're going to look at some of my images a little bit later, but I'll get back into gear. Another great lens I was saying was the 14 to 24. If you are lucky enough to get up in the pit and you want a wide angle of the entire stage, it's great to have that wide angle lens so you can capture, whoever's on, the bass, the keyboard, your lead guitar, your lead singer, the drums in the back, either a bass or a backup guitarist on the other side of the stage. You want to get the full effect of what's going on, the full scene. You got to have a wide angle lens if you're close up. If you're way in the back of the concert, you know what, you're probably going to be shooting on a zoom lens the entire time. So you're probably not going to need that wide angle lens. But I'm speaking from my personal experience when I'm up close in the pit, right underneath the artist performing. You need that kind of gear. What else? Also shoot on a Canon 70 to 200. I don't shoot on this often. On my Canon gear, I save this strictly for when I'm shooting on my 610. And same thing with my Nikon 14 to 24. I'll save that for when I'm shooting on my 610. Newer Nikon glass works best on Nikon with autofocus. I save my older Nikon glass, my 50mm, my 300. I save that for my Canon. It's all manual focus, manual aperture. I just like it that way. Also have my 24 to 105 for my Canon. Great little lens. It opens up to f4. Great for concert photography, opening up to 24mm to get that whole entire stage. And then I can zoom in to 105 if I want to get those close-ups of faces. So that's a little bit of the gear I use. Settings, like I said, they're going to be all over the board. It's up to you to show up early and kind of scope out during sound check or light check. That's when the artists are checking their amps, their chords, their connections, their guitars, their drums, their everything, to make sure that their microphones work. Everything is set up to go. That's your chance to set where your focus is going to be, so you know you're going to be focusing on the artist here, you're going to be focusing on artist performer in the back, kind of get a general idea of what your settings are going to be. You always want your ISO to be as low as possible to get the cleanest quality image. And for concerts, your f-stop's probably going to be wide open or close to it, shooting 1.8, 2.8, 4, maybe 5.6, as far open as you can get. Sometimes there's really distracting backgrounds that you want to blur out. Bands come in with these portable stages that have these giant bars everywhere to hold up all their lights, and all this rigging and stuff. It can get really annoying to have, right in the background, it's cutting through the back of somebody's head. You want to blur that out in the background. So shooting wide open at 2.8 is really great for those close-ups, right up in the eyes and the face, or, like I said, the neck of the guitar, strumming some notes, and blur out everything in the background to make a nice clean image. Not so much in your wide-angle lenses are you going to have to worry about that. You're going to be getting your depth anyway because it's a wide-angle lens. Shutter speed. Shutter speed depends on everything. You're not going to be using flash, so you don't have to worry about syncing flash. A lot of concerts do have strobe lights, so you're going to have to, that's just playing back and forth with their strobes and shooting on, continuous high, so that you're making sure you're capturing a lot of images very quickly, so that you're capturing the moment, the action. Let's see what else. Yeah, shutter speed's going to depend on what you want. If you have the artist with their guitar and they're jumping up in the air, maybe you want blurred motion where you want the entire stage sharp and you want the artist blurry, doing whatever they're doing to really capture that dynamic motion. Maybe you're going to be shooting at 1/25 of a second, 1/10 of a second. Maybe you want to show that drummer moving back and forth. You're going to be shooting 25th, a 50th of a second to make sure that your drums are sharp, but the drummer's moving back and forth with drumsticks. Also depends what lens you're shooting on. You're probably not going to shoot on a 50th of a second with a 200mm lens. You might do that with your 50mm lens or your wide angle. Just remember your rules that you have to use a little bit faster of a shutter speed with your longer lenses if you're not as close to the stage. Usually that's the reciprocal rule where you use 1 over your focal length. So a 200mm lens, I usually use 1 over 200, so 1/200th of a second for getting fairly crisp motion when I'm shooting handheld. That's mostly a handheld rule. All rules are meant to be broken. You can throw all that out the window when it's shooting concerts because your light changes, your action changes, everything changes. It's kind of getting in the groove of the concert and realizing how their light's set up, where the artists are going to be, how much of a performance the artists are going to give. Are they going to be walking all over stage? Are they going to be jumping up and down? It all depends. It's kind of going through that first song or two and realizing kind of what the energy is of the concert so that you can kind of get a feel for it and photograph better. When you're in that energy and you're in that zone to photograph, you're just kind of focused. It's a really awesome feeling. Don't get too focused on one thing. Remember, there's a lot of moving pieces to a concert, especially a band. You'll have, like I said, your guitarist, your lead singer, lead guitarist, backup guitarist, bassist, drummer, keyboard, everything. Don't get caught up on two things. Try and capture the entire spectrum of what's going on. So that's almost everything that I can think of. We talked about gear, talked a little bit about settings. Settings are all up to what kind of image you want to make. Now let's talk a little bit about concerts themselves. Usually the hard, fast rule, like I said before, no flash whatsoever. I've never been to a concert where I could use flash, especially bigger artists, bigger bands. You're distracting the artist, you're distracting the fans trying to enjoy the show. So another rule is usually, most concert photographers know the 3-song rule. You're only allowed to photograph in the pit for the first 3 songs. Now that's because, a couple reasons I think. I don't think the artists, like after the first 3 songs, they're getting all sweaty and disheveled and face sweat, armpit sweat. They're kind of getting nasty because they're getting into the songs. After the first 3 songs, like I said, they're covered in sweat. They don't want close-up photos of them. So that's one reason I think, kind of an image thing for the group, band, artist. And one more thing to remember, when you're shooting a concert, photography obviously doesn't have audio. So you don't know what song's playing. That's the important part, is to capture the essence of the show, the performance, the artist, the energy. Capture that energy that they're giving off, because that's what they're there to do. You don't have the audio of a concert. Sound is such a big thing in a concert, and you don't have that with photography. So you have to use your images to convey, like I said, that sense of energy. I hope you learned a little bit about concert photography. I hope you can use this to make your images better and at least be a little bit more prepared when you go shoot a concert. So that's all I got. If you like these photo talks, if you like these challenges and everything I do here on my channel, please subscribe right down here, like my videos. Please leave a comment, let me know what kind of stuff you want to see. And until then, just get out and go shoot.